We're calling by a man from the real world, from the Republican National Committee. Raffi Williams joins us here on America's Forum. Raffi, we thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on. I always love it.
It's good to have you Skyping in today from Washington, Raffi. And this scandal, a lot of people were drawing an analogy to the 18-and-a-half-minute gap on the White House tapes during the Nixon administration. And history books have this rather curious picture of Rosemary Woods with her foot on a dictaphone pedal, reaching, it seemed, a mile and a half from her desk to pick up the telephone as a physical manifestation, a visible rendition of how the White House could cop a plea on the 18-and-a-half-minute gap. Now the IRS is claiming, oh, these hard drives are gone. What is your take on this situation?
Look, I mean, everything here just looks fishy. I think Paul Ryan said it perfectly last week when he took the IRS commissioner to task over the fact that these emails are lost. It's outrageous, and it's hard to believe that there wasn't something back there. I mean, we all know we deal with emails every day. If my computer crashes, I'm still getting emails to my phone, so they're still all accessible. And they have this backup company that supposedly allow you to click and reach it, but for some reason it's unsolved. And there's so many questions out there that the IRS is just not being forthcoming on, and neither is this administration, let's remind you. And thankfully, Chairman Issa this weekend issued 50 questions to the IRS commissioners that he should answer, and that hopefully we'll get some answers to this evening at 7 p.m.
Two committees of jurisdiction. Well, Friday it was the Ways and Means Committee, the committee that controls the tax code, where we saw Paul Ryan offer his rather emotional retort to IRS Commissioner Koskinen. But you also mentioned Government Reform and Oversight, chaired by Darrell Issa. Freudian slip there. Darrell Issa, my old colleague from California, taking a look at this and issuing, as you said, so many questions. But I cannot help but note your official title with the Republican National Committee as you deal with so much of the new media, as you deal with the internet and being internet savvy. Is this just an example, regardless of partisan label, where the American people are far more savvy than this administration is giving them credit for?
Well, I mean, I think you see this time and time again. Private sector, American people, they function because they're trying to make a profit, because they're trying to do what's best for their families. Government, on the other hand, seems to have no motivation to do their job properly. I mean, if you look at the law, it says that, I believe, private corporations have to keep documents for 7 years. Now, the IRS can't even find documents from 3 years ago. That's absurd. That's outrageous to me that private sector is held to different standards than the government is, when the government is supposed to be serving the people. This is an example where I think Democrats would do well for themselves to come out and say, hey, there are questions around this. There are answers that need to be figured out. Let's get to the bottom of them. But instead, they're playing partisan politics with a really serious issue here, the failure of the IRS, which can dig into anybody's life. Remember this, the IRS can dig into your life. They can get 7 years of back information from you. But if you try to dig into the IRS, well, we lost the emails. I mean, it really should be a nonpartisan issue that the Democrats are trying to play politics with.
Well, which leads to the inevitable speculation when it came to Watergate, when the shoe was on the other foot and Democrats were going out making all sorts of allegations against President Nixon. Both the Nixon administration, with the appointment of a special legal counsel, and B, the Republican minorities, as they were then in the House and Senate, went along from a constitutional concern. Will this partisan wall, where the Democrats are standing in solidarity with the Obama administration, will that start to crumble based on the concerns you've pointed out about everyone being affected by the IRS when push comes to shove?
Well, you would hope that the walls would crumble here, and that they would they would understand the significance of this error that the IRS has made, and they would understand the significance of finding out the information that we need. And as you were saying, the constitutional responsibility they have to get to the bottom of this and to be proper oversight of the IRS here. But, you know, a lot of me is saying they're going to continue to play politics with this. Remember, how do we find out this? Politics. They were using IRS for political gains. So they're going to try to cover up their use of federal agencies for politics. And that's why they're going to play more politics with this. Republicans the whole time have been trying to get to the bottom, try to find answers, and try to do what they can for the American people. But Democrats have stopped it every way.
Well, how long can they continue to slow walk this? I mean, yes, the House and the Senate have constitutional oversight, and obviously the House is taking the lead because all revenue bills must originate in the House, the Ways and Means Committee with jurisdiction, and obviously we talked about Darrell Iss's Government Reform and Oversight Committee. But I'm just wondering, with the Justice Department being run by Eric Holder, in your opinion, will the current Attorney General ever really take the necessary steps to appoint an independent counsel, or is this just going to be a situation where the fox is guarding the henhouse?
Well, I think you're seeing the fox guarding the hen house right now, and I hope that there's something that comes out of this, that the Democrats and Holder decided to take this seriously and to see what a breach of trust this actually is for the American people, and to take their roles, his role especially as Attorney General, and really focus and hone in on this. But am I holding my breath for that to happen? No, because you've seen time and time again, the Democrats aren't interested in being good stewards for the American people, aren't interested in what the American people need and deserve, but instead are interested in protecting their most transparent administration ever. And I think this is something we have to get to the bottom of, and that's why I'm so happy that Republicans have really taken it upon themselves to bring this issue up and make sure the American people know and understand it. And it's just another issue that's going to be a problem for Democrats in 2014, especially if they don't think it's important enough to get to the bottom of.
Well, we take a look at this, and certainly you would think, and you mentioned the elections, Raffi, and that can be a clarifying moment. It would seem to me that the instinctive loyalty based on partisan label would have to fade fairly quickly for any number of Democratic senators in what we call red states, Democratic senators in states that were carried in 2012 by the Republicans in the presidential column. I think, for example, of North Carolina with Kay Hagan, or Louisiana with Mary Landrieu. Do you foresee any members of the Senate on the Democratic side eventually doing that calculation, saying, look, politically, for my own survivability, not to mention the concerns, I've got to step up and ask for some answers?
Well, I think that you only see this with the White House permission, right? I mean, go back to the VA scandal. I remember how the day before the White House announced that the Secretary Shinseki was resigning, all the red state Democrats came out against Shinseki. They said he should resign, and it seemed like it was a wink and a nod from the White House. Now, we don't know this for sure, but it seemed that way. And I think that you won't see the 2014 Dems split from the White House unless they get a wink and a nod from them first. And so I think you got to see what's the White House play on this, because there's some issues that the red state Dems are allowed to split on, but there are others that they try to keep a unified front. And is this going to be one of those issues where they try to keep a unified front? That's the question I think you all have to face here. And will the White House give them a wink and a nod and allow them to split from them on this policy?
Well, Raffi Williams, it is not with a wink and a nod, but to recognize that primary fights are part and parcel of both major parties' existence. Coming up tomorrow in Mississippi, the runoff between incumbent Thad Cochran and his challenger, State Senator Chris McDaniel. Now, you take a look at this race. What lessons can we learn from what is happening or what may be afoot in Mississippi?
Well, I think that what you're seeing is primary voters in the GOP in Mississippi are going to have a voice. They're going to have a say over who their general candidate is, or their candidate is for the general election. And when that happens, the RNC is going to be happy to support whoever they choose, because we believe that primary voters know best who can represent their issues. And that's what we're really focused on here at the RNC. We don't get involved in primaries. So for us, we're watching the Mississippi voters have their say and have their day tomorrow.
So technically, the role of the party is, hey, we wish you both well, you Republicans. Fight a clean fight, and then we'll see what happens after the primary. Raffi, there are some reports in our parent website, Newsmax.com. We have it on the screen right now, that incumbent Senator Cochran is seeking crossover voters, African American, union voters, maybe even some Democrats to get involved in this Republican primary. With the minute left, do you have any reaction to those reports?
Well, I think that Republicans need to make sure they win all voters and they represent all Mississippians. But in the Republican primary, you got to focus on your Republican voters. And so if Cochran thinks he can find new Republican voters in communities he hasn't reached out to yet, then more power to him. But I think you have to remember that this is a Republican primary, and that's what we're focused on, is Republican voters.
Raffi Williams from the RNC in Washington, thanks very much for Skyping in. We look forward to our next visit.
Thank you.
Well, you hear Raffi there playing the role of the diplomat with the upcoming primary in Mississippi. What is your take on that race? Will the challenger defeat the longtime incumbent? And oh yeah, the IRS scandal. Did you have this thing sniffed out just with your knowledge of computers? before the official storyline came out from the administration? Why don't you tweet us your comments at NewsmaxTV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also email and Facebook. You'll see our faces again following the break.